this morning, since didn't sleep much last night, and I was reading a lot of this book, Awakening Children's Minds, How Parents and Teachers Can Make a Difference, because I realized that it's upside down and backwards, mirror image for you. I thought before I did my workout, see, rocking the Lululemon, real old school, like early 80s, and it's still good. I know, right? Anyway, I was reading this book. It's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend it for anyone with really young children or children on the autism spectrum, developmentally delayed and stuff, because it really gets back to the nuts and bolts of the guiding relationship, which is what relationship development intervention is based on. And it's a really good reminder. I'm only 50 pages in, but it already reminds you that it kind of debates the nurture versus nature and the quality time over the quantity of time that you spend with your kids. But really, it's all four of those things. It's their like how you nurture them, their nature you have to take into account. And it really is how much quality time, the quantity of quality time you spend with your child, or that they spend with loved ones, because children learn through their experiences. And parents and trusted adults, whether it's grandparents or trusted friends, are the gatekeepers to that learning. When you think about it, us as adults control what TV shows they watch, what computer games and programs they interact with. We control what extracurricular activities they get involved with, whether it's dancing or gymnastics or soccer. We control where they live. I mean, to some degree, we have a choice of which neighborhoods they will live in and who they're interacting with. We also control like outings and engagements with other loved ones or other like grandparents and relatives, and those other people who, because every experience, whether it's unloading the dishwasher or learning about grandma and grandpa's past and their hobbies, or making cookies with a good friend, or really a really great teacher sometimes can be that other guide in their life. The more meaningful relationship they have, the more opportunity the child has to learn from those experiences. And they partly learn from our experiences, for our ability to share our experiences with them, because they haven't had enough of their own to pull from yet. So we really, as adults, especially when kids are young, have this great, like, we are the gatekeepers. Like, we can look at, let's take this scenario. This is the best way to explain it. Dad and son are walking down the street, or walking down the walkway, or the waterfront, and the little boy says, "Look, Dad, a fisherman." Dad has two options. He can say, "Oh yeah, you're right," and leave it at that. Experience over. Or Dad's second option would be to be like, "Oh, you're right. I wonder what he's fishing for." The little boy might say, "Trout." Well, I don't think it's trout, because trout is a freshwater and this is the ocean and it's salt water. So I wonder, maybe let's look up on my phone and see what might be coming up past right now. You might Google it. You might be like, "Oh, we could just ask the fisherman." So the dad and son walk over and see the fisherman and ask, "Hey, what you fishing for?" And he's like, "Oh, salmon for dinner." "Oh," says Dad, "how do you like to cook your salmon?" "Oh, I like to cook it with lemon and bake it in the oven." "Oh, that's interesting." And thanks, and they wave goodbye. And on the way back, Dad's like, "You think we should pick up some salmon tonight? Maybe we'll cook it with lemon in the oven." He just took a few moments to make one kid's interest, because you can't force anything on a kid. A kid has to indicate that they are interested and able to be ready to learn, because otherwise you're just forcing it down their throats, and it's gonna fail. So when a kid lights up and shows some interest, he was interested in that fisherman, and Dad went with it. It took all of 3 minutes, but he created this great experience. And now 3 years from now, that little boy, this could be a really strong memory for him. He'd be like, remember that day when we were walking down the waterfront and we ran into the fishermen and then we went home and made salmon? That created one tiny like observation on the child's behalf into a whole experience that maybe took 5 minutes. So we as parents, as long as and adults in a child's life, are really the gatekeepers of how much they learn at what point. Another really great way of doing it would be like if the boy said, oh, look, there's a fisherman. Dad could have linked that back to another experience they just had by saying something like, oh, I wonder if he's going to catch a boot, like the guy in our story last week. That's connecting that story and cementing it in. The more you go back to it and remember it, the stronger that memory will be. So that's just a grand example. But on a whole nother level, we as adults control how much challenge the child experiences. So when they're trying to overcome something or whether they're learning a new skill, we can control how much frustration they have. We can notice when they're getting frustration and jump in and help when needed. We can jump in by knowing where they're at and being like, we can forward or backward chain it so the child is only doing a tiny little bit and a tiny little bit of challenge, which is manageable for them. When we see they're having trouble, we can jump in with our words and guide their thinking by reminding them of past experiences that might relate to it. We can guide their thinking by highlighting specific things so that they can move forward in the right direction. We can encourage them by reminding them of past successes. Hey, remember when you learned to ride a bike? You had to practice and practice and practice. This is just like that. We can give them tools. It talks about how a dad's helping a kiddo with a puzzle. And she's like, oh, I can't figure this out. And he's like, oh, well, I try to match colors first. And then later she gets home of matching colors. I also look at the shape and see if the shape and the color match. And then I know that's where they fit. And then he reinforces it later by saying, I have a blue piece. Do you think it fits here? And the little girl's like, no, that's not the right shape, Dad. So he's just cementing in those skills for his daughter. So we as adults, when we're mindful and present, can take any experience and make it a learning opportunity. A way to cement in new skills, to add a new challenge. We just need to be aware. And not that you have to be on top of this all the time, but if you could choose one time a day where you're on top of it, like between this time, and in RDI we actually pick a specific activity, whether it's folding laundry, washing the dishes, brushing our teeth. Sometimes it's a fun game like charades to build on a new skill in a super fun way that the kids enjoy, and you're building fun memories with them. So we, again, as adults, we really are the gatekeepers of how much learning a child has and access they have to those experiences and what they learn from those experiences.